all happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Do you know who said that? Do you know where it's from? And more importantly, do you agree with it? If you have any thoughts on any of that, leave comments below. Today I'm going to give you the words to talk about your family: mother, father, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa, etc. These are words that you use in almost every introductory conversation, so they're pretty important. Давайте начнем. Всем привет, меня зовут Jared, и я делаю русский язык легким. I'm going to use a little graphic to help teach these words today. Hopefully it'll make it a little bit more interesting. And as I go through, I'm going to talk about the different family members and make up a few little stories. Know that it's all fictional. My actual real family is very different from what's presented here. I just thought it would make it more interesting for you. One thing I want to really encourage you to do is, as I give you the words here, say them out loud after I give them to you. That'll do two things for you. One, it'll help you with your pronunciation, and two, it'll help you with your memorization. All right, давайте начнем. Вот это я. И это моя жена. Кажется, что она почему-то сердится на меня. This is me, and this is my wife, and it appears that she's angry at me for some reason. So the word for wife is женá. And I've also put the word muž for husband here, in case that applies to your situation. Again, as a little reminder, repeat these after I say them to you. Женá, wife. Muž, husband. У меня есть сестра. I have a sister. Сестра, sister. Сестра. И один брат. And one brother. Брат, brother. Brat. I remember that by thinking my brother is kind of a brat. That's how I remembered it. Brat. Это муж сестры и жена брата. This is my sister's husband and my brother's wife. So in Russian, they don't have brother-in-law, sister-in-law. They just say husband of my sister and wife of my brother, that sort of thing. Муж сестры, husband of my sister, and жена брата, husband of my wife, жена брата. Это моя мама и мой отец. This is my mom and my dad. Mom and dad both have two words. For mom, they'll say mать, or they'll say máma. The words for father are отéц and pápa. Mama and papa are more used by little kids. Mать and отец are more used by, older folks. И, конечно, у меня есть дédушка и бáбушка. And of course, I have a grandfather and grandmother. Grandfather, dédушка, grandmother, bábушка. The one thing that's kind of different in Russian than it is in the English language and perhaps whatever native language you speak is that in Russian, if they want to get the attention of a gentleman or a woman who is, maybe grandma or grandpa age, they'll just call that out. Hey, bábушка or dédушка. They just call that, hey, grandma, hey, grandpa. And in English, that would be pretty rude, right? You would say grandma. They'd be like, what are you calling grandma? You saying that I'm old, right? But in Russian, it's very acceptable. Hey, bábушка. They just call you that. Dédушка. Aren't you guys glad I give you all these little tidbits rather than just memorizing a bunch of new words, but you get some more kind of cultural aspect to it and how they really use it over there? All right, I'm bragging. Sorry. Let's keep going. Это мой дядя. This is my uncle. So дядя is uncle. Дядя. And тётя is aunt. Тётя. And then you'll see here, if my aunt had a son and a daughter, in English, that would be my cousin. But they don't have just a generic word for cousin. Their word for cousin in Russian is gender specific. So they say двоюродная сестра, or a cousin who's a female, and двоюродный брат, for a cousin who's a male. And you can see they're using the word brat and sestra, right? Brother and sister. So it's двоюродный. That's kind of the word for cousin, and then you put the masculine or feminine ending on it. У меня есть один сын и одна дочь. I have one son and one daughter. Сын, son. You can kind of think of that like sin, as your son. I sinned and had a son, if you want to think of it that way, 10 Commandments and all that. Сын, дочь, daughter. Now, here in Russian, rather than say just daughter-in-law or son-in-law for the spouse of your son or daughter, they actually have specific words for it. Невéстка, that would be your daughter-in-law or the wife of your son. Невéстка. And zять, that would be your son-in-law or the husband of your daughter. Zять. У меня тоже есть один внук и одна внучка. And I also have one grandson and one granddaughter. Внук, grandson. Внук. Внучка, granddaughter. Внучка. И у меня есть один племянник и одна племянница. So in English, we have separate words for niece and nephew, right? That is gender-based. Russian follows the same thing. Племянник, nephew. Племянник, племянница, niece, племянница. Okay, that's pretty much the family relationship. I'm going to give you a few extra words here that aren't specifically in the chart, but that are still related to family. The first one is семья, that's family, it's feminine, семья. Вот это моя семья. Hey, here's my family, семья. And here's a few more for you. Родители, parents. Родители, parents. Дéти, children. Дéти. Рódственники, relatives. Рódственники. Прабáбушка, great-grandmother. Pradédушка, great-grandfather. And for any generation you want to tack onto that, like we do in English, it's my great-great-great-grandfather. Same thing, you just add on another pra. Это мой pradédушка. This is my great-great-great-grandfather. Близнецы, identical twins. Близнецы. Двойняшки, fraternal twins. Сводный брат, stepbrother. Сводная сестра, stepsister. Okay, you guys, all those words are going to be listed in the show notes below, so you can copy and paste them into whatever steady age you're using. Be sure that when you're practicing these and memorizing them, that you're saying them out loud. These are important. You're going to use them all the time, so memorize them. All happy families are alike. All unhappy families are unhappy in its own way. You know where that comes from? It's a very famous quote from Leo Tolstoy, famous Russian author. It's the first line of one of his more famous books, Anna Karenina. And what he's getting at there is all families to be happy have to meet kind of the same criteria. They need food, they need some money, they need a shelter, they need, some discipline to get along, some basic common core elements. And they're kind of boring. There's not a whole lot to them. But it's the unhappy families that show all the depth and the complexity and the growth. Now, that's his point of view, and he goes on in Anna Karenina, and there's a bunch of different families in there, and he explains that. It's a great book. It's kind of a hard read if you're not used to Russian literature, but I love it. It's great. We'll talk about it later in the future, but just curious there, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with that about unhappy families and happy families all being the same? If you have any thoughts on that, leave me comments in the show notes. And as always, if you have any questions about any of the words I give you today, leave those in the show notes. Ну хорошо, тогда это все. Спасибо и увидимся.